Hello and welcome to another deep probing analysis of all my games from a tournament. This time it's Deadzone, and this was WOFCON 2018, put on by Weight of Fire at the Forge, Manchester. So this is, as far as I know, the first two-day Deadzone tournament, possibly not in the world. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it's the first two-day Deadzone tournament in the UK. I think I'm secure in saying that. So, as you can see by the thumbnail, we've got the Plague. And before I actually get into the bulk of this report, I'm going to go through some terrain tables in a minute. But this is the first tournament that I've attended with the Plague since I won with them a couple of months ago. But I'm not taking even remotely similar lists because there's been quite a few changes. There was the Outbreak book that changed a few things. Some of the choices that I didn't think were that great before suddenly became very, very interesting and tempting. And you can see that the big stage 1 is among those. He's been put in there. The issue with him used to be that his splat was too unreliable. So you didn't really get good value out of him, because in some of the games you're going to struggle to get him into a fight or to position him anywhere useful because he's so slow. So you need a splat that's kind of, if you do get him into a fight, it's a nice bonus that makes other things better or himself better. And if he doesn't, at least you've got that. So you've got squeezed a little bit of juice out of him, a little bit of value. But his splat before was terrible. Now it's much better. So he's going to be used heavily. And by heavily, I mean in 50% of the games. So on day 1, there are 3 games at 150 points. And on day 2, there are 3 games at 200 points. So the lists can be entirely different. And that's what I went for, because there was another new leader for the Plague that I wanted to test out. And that was the new Lieutenant, who buffs up aberrations and stage 2A leapers and the bursters. So he can make them, with his splats, can make them immune to the negative effects of Rampage, and gives them a nice little bonus when they do actually get to fight as well. So that was something that I wanted to try out. So he's in my smaller list, but we'll get to the specifics of the list shortly. I've got all my interesting documents here with all the information from all the games on. So let's look at the tables first, because my main objective at this event was to try and get the terrain award, because as you've seen in previous videos, I've spent a very long time working on all my terrain and the board to stick it all on with the basement section. So let's start going through the various boards that were on offer. There were way more tables than there were games going on, which is nice because it means you can spread people around onto different ones. Although I did end up, without realizing, I ended up playing on the same table twice because it was spread over 2 days. I just forgot that I'd already played on it, I think. So this one, I've played on this one before. This is always an interesting one. The only issue I have with this one is that I forget when I've put things in the middle because you can't see them. And I did have a game where I lost a plague swarm in there and didn't remember it was there until right at the end of the game. This one is a nice one as well. This is one of the many tables that wasn't brought by any particular player for the tournament. These are just the standard Weight of Fire issued tables, I think, but all of them are being steadily improved with time as well. I'm not sure if this one's had anything added to it. It may have a few more posters on now, I think. And here's another one. So it's nice to see little bits of variety, so it's not all just the battle zone terrain. There's some other things going on this one. You'll notice that the level of terrain is pretty consistent across most of the tables. These two are a bit more densely packed. Then most of them are kind of like this, where you've got some open space. And that's definitely the case for this one, quite a bit of open space on here. When I say open space, it doesn't mean the cube is completely empty. Things like this that'll prevent you from being open shot, perhaps. But for the most part, there's not much to block you. There's another one fairly similar in the amount of terrain. This one's a nice splash of colour though, because you're going to get a lot of grey and kind of metallic colours. And this is mine. So immediately you'll notice this is much more densely packed than most of the other tables, and that's what I was going for. And I've tried to position all the buildings so you can actually reach every point with your arm though without knocking things over. So that is something I kept very much in mind. And I've added posters onto all these buildings. There isn't a huge amount. I was just testing it out. I've also tested out putting some kind of hazard warnings and things on the side of the buildings as well with a stencil. So with varying results. I haven't quite finished with all of it yet. I'm going to put more posters on. There's some more things I've got in mind. But this is my offering here. Very dense. And I did plan beforehand for each scenario that was going to be taking place on the table, possibly throughout the 2 days, because all the scenarios were made available beforehand. We knew exactly which ones were going to be used. So I made sure to position the buildings and the bits of scattered terrain in such a way that none of the scenarios would be horrendously unbalanced for one particular player or one particular kind of list. So unless you bring just endless size 3 and 4 big beasties, then you should be fine, because there's lots of half cubes. Then this one is nice. I've played on this one before as well, LEDs. And this was Uncertain Scenery. This is all pretty much all laser cut with Mantic Battlezone attached to it. I think this is obviously way too big for a normal Deadzone game. So when this was used, you just used the middle part of it. I think this was only there for the first day, I think. But this is really high quality laser cutting, because my issue with laser cut terrain is that it always looks really flat and featureless. But with this, I was actually really impressed that it didn't look that way at all. I don't know whether it comes in lots of smaller pieces that you have to assemble or what the issue is, but it just looked better than most of the other laser cut stuff I've seen. So that was very impressive. And I'll be looking into their product line at some point in the future. I think this size would be better for the scaled up version of Deadzone, the Firefight, I think it's called. I think that'd be great on here. I've played on this one before as well. This is a really interesting one with a fascinating half cube, strange setup in the middle. I know it was built before the half cube rule for capacity was brought in, so it can get a bit awkward if you've got big beasties that want to get in this area here. This is a nice statue there of, I think it's called Sergeant Howlett, something like that. It's several sizes bigger than the actual model, so that's a nice one. And another one. And it's nice to see a bit of greenery as well, more variety in colour. And you can tell there are a lot of tables here. This is a nice one. I like the underneath bit here. The ground texture, very nice. Compared to just having lots of mats like these, it's nice to see ones with actual texture and whatnot on the ground. And more colour variety. It's a bit dark to be considered orange, I would say, but there are splashes of what could be described as orange in there, so can't argue with that. And I've played on this one before as well. This one's always nice, bit of visual variety. And I think this big building has been recently added to this table. And so we're on to game one now. But I'm going to tell you about the Terrain Award first before we get into that, because that was announced partway through day one, and it was judged by Mr. Ronnie of Mantic, the big boss, as it were. And he decided that, let's go back, decided that my terrain was worthy of the Terrain Award. So I've got a nice dog tag with that and a nice certificate. And the prize, I'll show you the actual prize at the end. There are lots of free stuff for the participants in this tournament as well. So I will show you that at the end of the video in the big prize / freebie pile. So very pleased with that. And people were very complimentary about the table all the way through the 2 days. So very pleasing. I've got more projects in mind as well. But this one, as I said, isn't even finished yet. I've got more to do there. And I think the next one, if I can pull it off, I think it will blow people's minds. But that could be a way off yet. We'll have to see. I've only mentioned it to 1 or 2 people, and they seemed very excited about it. So let's go into my list at 150 points, shall we, and actually get this bad boy on the road. So since we knew the scenarios beforehand, I was able to pick lists that I felt would be all right in those scenarios. And I wanted to try the new Lieutenant, who buffs up stage 2s and aberrations. They're the models I have that he can give a benefit to. So I took the Lieutenant. He's about as killable as the other leader, the other small leader that brings zombies, the general, that one's called, I think. So you've got to keep him hidden or he'll just get killed. I've got a couple of hellhounds, one ghoul, because it's sometimes, depending on what you take, you'll end up with a weird amount of points left at the end. I think originally I had 3 dogs in there, but then I ended up with 4 points left at the end. And I thought, do I want to take an upgrade on anything? There's nothing really that can make use of an upgrade like that. So let's just ditch a dog and bring in a ghoul instead, which is the regular stage 3, the new name for them. So he's like a dog, except he can also shoot. So that's all right. Then we've got 2 stage 2s, leapers as they're now known. So hopefully they can benefit from the splat of the leader. An aberration, which is a bit of a risk at 150 points. He's a lot of points. It's almost a third of the total in one model. And if you end up on a scenario with certain objectives around the battlefield and those objectives happen to land on cubes that he can't access because he's too fat, then that's a lot of your army that's kind of tied out of the game. And then 2 murder birds. So what I'm going for here is speed. Murder birds and dogs and the ghoul, they're all speed 2-3. So they're going to be racing across the battlefield. And then also the aberration and the leapers are able to use the splat to get +1 to their sprinting speed. So provided they don't become suppressed, and even if they do, I can just use the splat on one of the others. You're probably not going to suppress all 3 of them, because I'm certainly not going to be intentionally putting them all, or the 2 leapers, for instance, in the same cube to allow them to become easily suppressed by certain weaponry. So this first scenario, as I consult the sheet here, this is breakthrough. So that's one reason I wanted a lot of speed. I want to get right across the table with the murder birds, perhaps even attack something in the first turn, and then in the second turn, move off the table and get me the points. So that's the plan anyway. And then other things like the dogs, they're really cheap. And getting, if I escape with a dog, 2 victory points for me there, and for only a 6-point investment. So I think that's pretty sound thinking there. The aberration, I just wanted a big piece of meat, basically, in the middle of my force that I could use if there are scenarios where I would want to sit on objectives. So that's what he's going to be useful for if he's not storming across and ripping people's heads off, depending if they're hiding from him successfully or not. So the murder birds are the key, though. Anything that shoots, because I've got very little shooting here, anything that's threatening me with guns, particularly in high places, I'm going to be scouting, and then with move dice, hopefully attacking something in the first turn with them. It depends on the recon test, though. So in this first game, I'm against marauders, and you can see there's a guy with a really big, terrifying AP gun on the roof. So he'd be someone that probably want to target the aberration or the stage 2s. They're the only things I have that actually have any armor. And a lot of it was kind of underneath. We spent quite a long time figuring out where we could and couldn't put our models on this table, because there's a lot of underground area that you have to be a bit of a contortionist to get to some of it. And you can see my setup on this side. I've got my leader hiding in this building. That was the only place that was really invisible to everything. And here we've got my stage 2, one of them. Then one of the murder birds up there. The murder birds I don't really consider too much where they're starting, because I know they're not going to be there at the start of the first turn because they're going to be using their scout move. The aberration in the middle with a dog next to him, not in the same cube, of course. And I think there is some indirect weaponry. There's some kind of mortar mounted on a vehicle for the marauders, so I haven't put too many people out in the open. These 2, for example, are underneath a roof there, and another stage 2 under there. Then the rest of my opponent's force. So I think his leader is down there, who is quite tough, and this is a bit of a combat beast, this guy. Is it called a Ripper? Something like that. And one of the Moor Beasts. The Moor Beasts are just better than Plague Dogs, basically. I think they're more expensive, though. Underneath, there is the mortar mounted on a vehicle there, and another Moor Beast. And then 2 more Moor Beasts as well. So, the big guy. My opponent won the recon roll, so he got to go first. But you can see where the murder birds have got to. with the scout move. So if I get move dice, one of them will be on him if he doesn't take out both of them. You can see where some of his more beasts are there. So I do get move dice, plus extra activation, plus dice, plus splat. So I can use the splat to speed something up, one of my nasty combat units. And he's got shoot, activation, move, and fight. Now this is the nightmare scenario. When your opponent, if you want to close that distance on them, they're going first, they get a shoot dice and an extra activation. Now, if you'd got another shoot dice, that would be even worse, because what tends to happen is if you're coming up against something like snipers, anyone that wants to just be pew, pew at people on their way in, then you'd be able to shoot, then use the shoot dice to shoot again, then an extra activation, shoot, then use a shoot dice. So you could potentially kill 4 models before anyone's done anything. So that's what would concern me. He does have some decent weaponry, so what does this guy do? Well, he immediately kills a murder bird. It takes him 2 shots, though. So with all those, with the shoot dice and the extra activation, I was kind of thinking one murder bird might get killed, and it did. So there we go. One toasted. He sends a more beast into the other one, so that's going to hold it up, potentially, to make it more difficult for it to get into combat. Although if I can get someone else in there to kill the more beasts, that would free up the bird before it activates. The aberration is just going straight down the middle as much as he can, so slightly to the right of the middle. I just want to charge him to the enemy half of the board, because with the whole idea being escape the table at the other end, my list, in order to win, you have to kill every single model if you're not gaining any victory points through the scenario. So if I can do as much fighting as possible on his side of the battlefield, then it's going to be very difficult for him to win, because my leader is never going to come out of hiding. So there's no way to win just by killing everything else. He would have to kill them fast enough or close enough to my half that he would have time to escape the table. So I want to move things forward and get fighting in his half, and the aberration is moving with that in mind. Another more beast comes in. Now this is something I often overlook. When there's a combat going on, I think, well, that model's already activated, I don't need to go with this next. I overlook the fact that there is another beastie nearby that can come and join in, when I could have got the first strike in there to join in with something else. So, yes, that's something I need to work on. That's something that lets me down a lot, actually, forgetting that there's other units nearby that will join in the combat. Okay, so I've moved one of my dogs up onto the roof section there. So I do get the stage 2 in there to help, and kills off one of the more beasts, as you can see, and one of the dogs moving up as well, and that's stage 2 as well. So again, pushing things forward as quickly as possible, apart from the leader who's just hiding under there. So that's how it's looking at the end of that turn. There we go. There's from another angle, so you can see where the enemy is. They haven't advanced much at all, really, apart from those more beasts. So there we go. It's 2-1 at the end of that turn. Not too displeased. And this is all right here. Move, fight is good because I'm already fighting. Shoot, that's one I wouldn't really want because I've only got one model with a gun and it's not very good. But the move and the splat are the important ones here. And my opponent's got extra dice, shoot, which I don't like, activation, which I don't like, and a splat. And his splat actually gives a model Frenzy 4, which is pretty nightmarish for a close combat army to face that, because I'd want to do the killing on him while he doesn't have any splats, because if you can just give Frenzy 4 to any model, it's going to be tough to kill them, let alone survive them fighting back. So not very pleased that that's come up. And here you can see a picture of something. I think there's a unit under there. Maybe it's the mortar that fires first. Yes, it is. So the mortar is underneath the grate there. And it fires. He might have killed his own Moorbeast with it, but he did wound the murder bird and send it down there, which I'm not lying down because it's metal, but it is pinned. And the stage 2 splats into there as well. So that has disrupted that area a bit, and it's protecting his big gun on the roof. But the Moorbeast did get killed. So a self-inflicted casualty. Then this guy with the extra activation is going to be able to shoot, and he kills off the stage 2 that had fallen down there. So I managed to roll it all the way up to the barricade there so he wouldn't have an open shot, but he still killed it because he's got good AP, he's got the height on his side. So he's dead. The murder bird flies up there into cover, so it's not just down there waiting to be attacked by whatever beasties are lurking under there. If you've got a pinned murder bird that's wounded, you don't want to leave it there when there's something that can leap into range and attack it while it's at its weakest. Then this dog, you can see when I'm positioning models that they're constantly poking their heads through things to make sure they're not being open shot, or leaving their tails around corners where possible. Things like the aberration, you can't really do that very often. My ghoul actually fires for effect on this big guy and pins him, because that is a heavy weapon, so he's going to be getting less shots with it when it next goes. I move my aberration down here, and I'm inviting him to attack me with whatever he wants to around there. And if he doesn't, I will just attack. So this is the area I want to do the fighting in because it's quite far from my table edge. So if there's going to be a drawn out combat here, even if he wins, he's not going to be able to escape the table and get victory points. And there's a dog lurking down there as well. So he does move in and he wounds the aberration because he uses his Frenzy 4 splat ability, I believe. But it's only a wound though, so it's going to hold on for now. That's the end of the turn. So I get another victory point for him killing his own Maw Beast, and he gets 2 more for killing the stage 2. This turn, 2 extra activations, a move, and a fight. Extra activations, I'm not going first, so it's not that useful. He's got lots of shoot, which isn't good at all for him because he's only got a couple of guns that are worth using, really, and the splat. So he sends the Maw Beast in there to join in the fight and actually does damage. Presumably he uses the splat in the fight against the aberration and he puts 2 more wounds on it. And I'm about to sneeze, so I'm going to mute the microphone for a second. And we're back. So aberration does not like this splat from the Marauders. It's very, very potent though, especially against a list like mine that's built around combat. Under here we've got a dog of mine, which I believe is attacking his mortar. I think that's right. So his leader moves up here now because he thinks he might need to do some mopping up around here, presumably. But he kills him actually, because you'll see that the leaper was there. So this guy comes in, kills the leaper, and that's another 2 VPs. It's a very blurry picture to show that the aberration actually gets killed then when the Ripper suit. Oh, then we've got a nice non-blurry version. That's nice. So the aberration's dead. And then it moves down there to kill the dog as well. So this is not going well at all here. This guy is able to shoot still because he got all those shoot dice, and he shoots down the other murder bird. So yeah, this is going really badly. The mortar successfully moves away from the dog, and look at the score now. So he's currently on 13 and I'm only on 2 at this stage. Wow. So it's not looking good. Right, so this turn for command dice, I've got 2 fights, a shoot, which isn't very good, and a splat, which is okay. He's got extra dice, activation, and shoot, which are things I do not want to see. But he doesn't have a splat this time, but it doesn't really matter because all my combat units are dead anyway. So I'm really just holding him back now. So I move the ghoul up here, out of harm's way, and then suppress the Maw Beast by shooting down onto it. And over here, my dog is killed. And I can't even remember who did that. It may have been his leader with a pistol. And that's all that really happened during that turn. Not very much at all. So he picked up 2 more victory points. My leader, hiding under there, doesn't do anything. And really, we establish at this stage, because we've run out of time, basically, in effect, the time we spent at the start having to reach and get into all the little nooks and crannies of this terrain because of all the underground sections, we spent an awful long time figuring out where we could and couldn't go at the start. So we were running low on time for the round. So we actually end up with a draw, even though I only scored 2 points. And one of them, he killed his own miniature there. So 2 to 15, you need 16 points to win. And my leader was just hiding the whole time. He does actually kill the ghoul that was standing up there, which got him an extra point. I think that guy probably shot him. But thinking about it, even if he had another turn, even if we actually got turn 5, I'm not sure he would have been able to escape anything off the table because all this stuff was so far back. So I think it was pretty much guaranteed to end in a draw, even if we didn't run out of time. So considering my game plan failed so terribly due to the murder birds being incapacitated instantly at the start of the game, then getting a draw out of it was really salvaging some points from what was a really terrible, I wouldn't say terrible game, I'd say a terrible run of events, shall we say. So after that, oh look, there's the award for the best terrain there, perched nicely next to the table. Can't argue with that. Okay, on to game number 2. Now, the scenario here is invade. So, this scenario, there are a couple of 1-point objectives in the middle of the table. There's one there. There'll be another one down on the ground there. And then you have a base objective that's worth 4, but only if you claim the one in your opponent's half. So, mine is on a half cube there, and my opponent's is also on a half cube up there. So that means the aberration is going to struggle to find anything useful to do here. And there are lots of half cubes on this table. So it's going to be easy to hide from him. But I do have some nice size 2 units that can get into those spaces. This is a plague off, by the way. I think we totally forgot to use crates in the first game, by the way. If you didn't notice, there weren't any crates on there. Because I think we were just running out of time. So we thought we'd better just hurry up and didn't even think about the crates because we were taking a long time figuring out where we could deploy and so on. So the crates are out in this one. There's my setup. So I've got some of them on the roof. The murder bird and a dog. He does have some ability to suppress. So I've not put 2 models in the same cube anywhere. I'm hiding my leader, of course. So in his plague force, he's got some zombies. No, I can't tell in this picture which ones are zombies, but I think there's a zombie up there. He's got an HMG there, a Teraton, a stage 2 there. That's his leader, who is Dr. Simmons. And he's got some ghouls. And with this scout move, I've moved up my birds, of course. And I think the reason one of them was able to move further is because I got the recon roll, and the result allowed me to move one of my models before the game. So that's another way, without using a move dice, that the murder birds can potentially be eating people in the first turn. So I get move, which is great. That means 2 murder birds might see combat in the first turn unless they get suppressed. A splat, extra dice, and a fight. He's got 2 fights into extra dice. So immediately the murder bird gets up there and kills whoever was there. Let me just check if it was a zombie. I don't know, that was actually a plague enforcer with an experimental weapon. That's who it was. That's why I chose to attack him rather than the HMG. I thought he was more dangerous. So the assault enforcer is dead immediately, and he's actually worth 2 or 3 victory points, I think. So that's a good start. He's dead, but then the murder bird gets killed. Not that one, but the other one immediately gets taken down by the HMG in 1 shot, which is really unfortunate. So a very mixed bag of a start there. And you'll see the murder bird is sitting next to the 4-point objective, but he's not actually on it because the assault enforcer was on the back line, and this is actually on this cube here. For anyone who watched my Dreadball report earlier will notice I was trying out some new broadcasting software, but I can't figure out how to leave the mouse cursor visible on it when doing an image slideshow yet. So that's why I'm not using it for this, because I want people to be able to see the cursor so I can point to things. And over here you can see I'm moving this guy up, keeping his hand behind the rubble so he's not going to be open shot by anything. He's got another stage 2 there. Now this dog's moving up as well, again using the cover. That's a zombie there. My aberration has moved on to the 1-point objective, because I don't think he's going to have much of an effect on this game, unfortunately, unless someone leaves themselves way too close to him for no real reason. So he's going to sit on the 1 point objective and maybe something will come up later on. My ghoul here does find some intel in a crate, so that's nice. Nice little bonus there. And the dog moves up there, leaving his tail behind the pillar. We do have 5 viewers at the moment, so make yourself known if you're in here. We've got Wayne Catlin and South Dakota Bob is in here as well, who's doing some painting at the moment. Okay, here we go. And Wayne says, never heard of the Forge before. How long has that been there? I don't know. I think it's fairly new, though. And it's the gaming portion of it is a bit smaller than, it's a fair bit smaller than Element Games in the gaming and the shop section, but it does have a much better hand dryer in the toilets than Element Games. So it has that going for it, and a nicer, smoother car park as well. So you can see here that this stage 2 is just loitering near to my base objective. So if anyone tries to jump on it, he'll be up there to tell them not to, basically. So there's a zombie has climbed up here, but one of them gets killed. One of them kind of kamikazes into the bird, I think, and dies. And there's the overview. So I'm scoring a point for that objective there. So I've got 5. Evil Plague, as they're called here, I have 2. So a decent start, but losing one of the murder birds is not good because I need as many size 2 things as possible because of the positioning of some of the objectives. So I've got activation, move, and 2 fights. He's got activation, dice, splat, and fight. Dr. Simmons' splat is pretty good. You can choose which mutation it gives somebody, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. I don't think I've actually used her in a game. So the murder bird immediately tries to kill the HMG. My plan here was to kill the HMG and then use the move dice to move onto the objective there. Another thing I could have possibly done is use a move dice to attack the HMG, then made a full 3 square move to attack just something totally unrelated. But I wanted to be on the 4 point objective with the bird because zombies are going to struggle to kill it, let's be honest. So I wanted to kill him, then move in there, but unfortunately I could only do a wound, which means if I have to use a fight dice to kill him, then I'm not going to be able to then use a move dice. So, wow. Okay, let's see. The Mighty Biggin is in the chat. Big fan of your Kings of War videos, but you're getting me interested in Deadzone now. Any interest in Vanguard coming up? Yes, I'm just waiting for the Vanguard Kickstarter to be sent out. It's going to be in about a month's time, I think, the rulebook. I've backed it for the rulebook and some Goblin stuff. There's a new Goblin hero. And also at this event, I got like a bag of some of the new Vanguard stuff, which I'm going to show off in a video soon as well. So definitely interested in Vanguard, and I would be interested if any of the Kings of War tournament organizers will be adding Vanguard as something that they do at those events as well. Maybe 1 game of Vanguard and then 3 games of Kings of War as a tournament, as an example. Something along those lines I think could be quite interesting. Kind of escalating, but we'll see. Definitely have an interest though. So I've got my dog into this ghoul here, but no damage done by the looks of it. And I've sent this ghoul up onto the roof to sit on that objective. So I've got some support up there now. Found a stun grenade as well, apparently. So I think that's a zombie, that's a ghoul, and they're sitting on their 1 point objective and shooting down and kill a dog. So that's not nice. One of his guys is right on the roof up there now, which is the highest point that anyone is in as far as shooting, and manages to kill my ghoul because he's so high up. The ghoul that had just moved in there. I think a zombie came in and tried to attack him, failed, and then maybe this guy shot down. I'm not sure if it was that way around or if the zombie came in afterwards. Probably did, because that would have reduced the number of dice. So he's dead. Then look at this. Stage 2, jumps up there, kills the bird. Because what happened was the HMG successfully broke away from the murder bird against the odds and then suppressed it, by shooting at it. And then the stage 2 jumped up there and killed it. So yeah, if you're going to attack something that's stronger than you, suppressing it first is a good way to even the odds, and that worked out there. So dead bird. So my stage 2 jumps up there and kills a ghoul or a zombie, or maybe both. Yeah, I think it actually killed possibly the ghoul and the zombie there. With a fight dice, yeah, he killed 2 models. But then his stage 2 jumps up to engage in a stage 2 off. It looks like they're trying to give each other a hug though, doesn't it? Look at that. That's nice to see. And does a wound. So it's not going well. The aberration is moving off the objective into the middle because I want him to project a kind of threat area now, because there's a Teraton lurking around somewhere. And if anyone wants to get to my objective, they generally will have to spend a turn moving towards it through this open ground. And the aberration, if I get splat, he can move 3 cubes. So anyone around that kind of area, he is threatening them now. So there's how it looks. Losing the 2 murder birds against the odds is a big blow, but it's not over. So at the end of that round, you can see that it's actually 6 victory points each. So not a good turn for me there. So I've got activation, splat, shoot, fight. So a nice little variety there. I could have done with a move dice as well, because that gives the aberration an effective range of 4 cubes, which is insane. But I didn't get one. 2 fights, a shoot, and a splat for my opponent. So this in the stage 2 hug off, the purple one comes out on top. There we go, dead. And I think I might be completely out of size 2 models now, which is going to be a struggle. Oh yeah, because this one gets suppressed. And let's see. Where is the HMG dead? I may have rushed in there and killed the HMG. And then this guy came in and killed him. I think he was suppressed by someone else, maybe Dr. Simmons firing for effect. Something like that suppressed it. After I killed the HMG. There you go. My leader climbs up onto the roof to escape from the Teraton, because this is only a half cube, so the Teraton can't enter it. And then my opponent's leader is just lurking around there, firing off shots. So down here, you can see the enemy are loitering around my objective here. And the stage 2 of the enemy jumps onto that objective there, just to protect it, and kills the dog that I'd sent up there. So my aberration attacks this stage 2. Like I said, if they want to attack my base objective and get the victory points for that, they have to spend 1 turn somewhere I can murder them with the aberration, and that's almost what happened. I don't think I killed it though. So again, poor turn. So I'm down 10-7 now. Okay, in this turn, move dice and a splat, that's okay, and activation, that's decent. My opponent's got extra dice and fights. So, another stage 2 off going on here. I need to kill that thing if I'm going to win this game. And a little bit of an overview there. So I do put a wound onto the stage 2 with the aberration at the second attempt, but he might still be able to break away and climb up there. My leader guns down a ghoul by the looks of things there. And the Teraton is jumping onto the 1-point objective. So, not too many models alive. Teraton scores. The enemy leader there scores, Dr. Simmons. So again, it's another really barren turn for me. So I'm only on 8 victory points. My opponent is on 12 with 1 turn left. He needs to get 4 more points to win. So this time, move, fight, dice, and shoot. And my opponent has exactly the same. So this fight continues. I need to kill that thing if I'm going to win, but I don't think I do. Teraton is going to stay there. Okay, this was quite funny. So this guy failed his rampage test. So I decided to run and attack his own leader. But he couldn't kill his own leader, unfortunately. That would have been a huge bonus for me there. That would have been absolutely hilarious. But it didn't work out that way. So at the end of the game, we didn't pick up any more points. And it was just a 9-14 draw. So that's 2 draws in a row where I haven't even come close to scoring enough points to win. So I'm thinking this list is flawed at this stage. I think the aberration is too much of an investment, and I think if you're going to have something so big and juicy like that, you need some way of moving people off the half cubes that are hiding from him. So combining it with a mortar, maybe. And I think there has been an element of bad luck as well with the murder birds being killed against the odds, in particularly at the start of this game, an HMG killing it in one go is slightly unexpected. Okay, we are now on to game 3, which is divide and conquer. So we have 2 2-point objectives on each side of the table, 2 there and 2 over there, and you deploy kind of in a little mini pyramid in the center there. So I'm against the Asterians, and there are quite a few Kalishi in there. Now, they are terrifying because murder birds want to get across the table and eat things. Kalishi would love murder birds to go across the table and try to eat things, because then they can just cut their heads off with their ridiculous blades. And the stage 2s are probably a juicy target for a Kalishi as well. They thrive on attacking that kind of unit. So really, I'm regretting not having any plague swarms in my 150-point list at this stage. There's some decent shooting over there as well for the enemy. So my plan here is to go for the big shooty things early on with the birds, try and get them right in there at the start of the game, sit on objectives with the aberration, and use the stage 2s to go that way towards those objectives. So there's my little setup. My opponent has quite a variety of units. Let's see which one's the Kalishi. There's one there. I think there's one there. Anyone with a big sword, basically. I think there's about 3 or 4 of them. I actually took a picture of the list, actually. That was useful because I wasn't sure of the names of anything. So the Kalishi leader, a Cypher, a Kalishi, a Marionette. So there's actually only 2 genuine Kalishis there. And then specialists, there is a Cypher, support drone, and a Sky Razor. So I get a bird immediately onto that objective. This one moves up there. This is with my scout moves, I think, but my opponent is going to go first. And oh, there's a scout move for my opponent as well, one of the Kalishi. So move, extra dice, and splat. My opponent has moved 2 extra dice and activation. So Kalishi immediately jumps in and kills the murder bird in one go. Wow. So that's 3 games consecutively now where the murder birds have been, well, at least one of them has been taken out immediately. So that's dead. Looking back, I should have realized that these things were the ultimate bird killing machines and maybe held them back a bit or sent them on the opposite side. But then again, they were fairly spread out. And this big gun here wounds a bird. So this is looking like a bad start. Now this guy piles in because, let's see, I did have a splat, didn't I? Yes, I did. So I used the splat on him to give him Frenzy. Frenzy 1. He's moving in and he's bigger than the Kalishi, but he still gets killed. Wow. So I thought, well, if he was ever going to kill one of them, it would be while given Frenzy and moving in and larger. But no, just dies. My dice rolling wasn't very good there, obviously. But then when you look at what my opponent rolled, I mean, look at that big 8 train there. Just an obscene number. So what can you do? You can't really account for that happening. Then over here, you can see a bit of repositioning going on, but it's looking bad already. The other bird's dead as a result of some shooting. And over here, he's put this drone onto the objective there, which later on the aberration is going to try and eat. I'm hiding my dogs a bit. Over on this side, he's sitting on several objectives, though. So he's going to pick up a lot at the end of that turn. He's sitting on all 4 of them, in fact, because all the units I sent towards the objectives got killed, and his didn't. So there you go. He's scoring 8 there. So I've got 3, and he's got 14 already. He only needs 2 more points to win. So essentially, he's going to win on turn 2. So the best I can do is get a huge amount of points now and try and turn it into a draw. So I'm just going to go all out and try and kill things, and hopefully cross 16 at the same point he does by killing things and then being on the objectives at the end. So a splat, move, activation, and fight. He's got a shoot, a splat, dice, and a fight. No extra activation, which is always nice. So my aberration kills the drone and then moves into that cube and kills whatever else was there as well. So it's getting its money's worth now. I knew it would be good in this scenario, depending on what kind of ground the objectives were on, but it was nice and flat on this side. So I knew he'd just eat whatever came over there. So racking up points. The stage 2 jumps up there to get into a fight, because I need to kill a lot of things, really. And I don't have that many models left to do it with. So you can see, oh, there's an action hand here. There you go, placing another model on there. And my leader moves into this one here just to get some more points and tries to shoot across there at the enemy leader to try and get that bonus tournament point. But no, can't do it. So look how close I got, though. So close to turning that into a draw in the final turn. So I managed to get 11 points in that turn. So if I'd managed to, let's see, what else could I have killed maybe? If the stage 2 had maybe been able to kill something else, or if I'd got a lucky shot with my leader over there and killed one of the Kalishi things, possibly the leader, then we would have had a draw on our hands. So that just shows you, even if you're really far behind, because of the way it works, with if you both happen to cross 16 in the same turn, it doesn't matter how much higher the opponent's score is, you can still, just by going all out, get as many points as you can, and you never know. So it's a loss, but I think it's a bit, even though it's only 2 turns in, I think it was creditable that I was able to pull it back somewhat and make it look respectable at the end. Okay, now you may think, well, is this just the same game again? And no, because there was a big gap here, obviously, because Game 3 was the last Deadzone game of day 1, and then we then went on to the Dreadball tournament. And if you didn't see that video, which I put up earlier, then you should check that out. And the next day, I was put on this table again, totally forgetting that I'd just played on it. Had we deployed in the same way, I'm sure I would have remembered. But if you look, let's see here. So I think something had been rotated. So he's definitely facing towards me now. And then if we look at the new setup, the whole table has been turned slightly. So that's probably what threw me off and made me forget that I was playing on the same table for the second time, because the buildings are in different places now. So I should have remembered really with that giant statue in the middle, but there you go. Now I am against, after that crushing defeat against the Asterians, I'm against the Asterians again in the scatter scenario. So my day 2 list, let's go through that, shall we? It's totally different from day 1, thankfully, because that one didn't go very well at all. Ended the day with 2 draws and a loss with no leader kills, so very few points picked up. And then my list here. So we've got the stage 1A, the big beastie of doom, who can now dish out an ability of his choosing to a model when it activates. So it'll either be Frenzy 1, AP 1, Resilient, or +1 armor. So really, it depends what you're up against. So you can just tailor the upgrade depending on what you're about to attack or what is about to attack you. So it's an amazing splat now. I love it. Then we've got 5 Hellhounds, 1 Ghoul, because the Scour scenario is coming up in this half of the day. So I wanted a Ghoul in there in case there were any items I could just pick up next to my own drop-off point. So I wanted to use him for that potentially. But in the other games, he'll serve a purpose as well. The Mortar team has to come in there. 2 Plague Swarms. I think this is the first time I've used the double Plague Swarm. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right. We've got a Plague Teraton. So I've got 2 size 3 models, a little bit of a risk, but I think I can afford to take it at 200 points. I've got enough other stuff in there. 1 Murder Bird, not 2. There's only 1 because in this scenario specifically, you're not allowed to scout. So I didn't want to take lots of scouts when one of the day 2 scenarios would deny you the ability to scout. So there you go. Only one murder bird and an HMG with extra ammo. So I've got extra shooting this time, mortar and the HMG. So there's going to be lots of suppression dished out. So here we go. You can see here that I'm deployed in those two corners. The enemy is deployed in that corner and that corner there. And the 1 point objectives are around the middle there. Most of them are on the floor, apart from this one. So they're all on full size cubes, which is nice for the big size 3 creatures I've got. You can see them there. Lots of crates scattered around. Although sitting a stage 1 on a 1 point objective isn't the ideal situation because he's quite expensive and only racking on 1 point a turn isn't that great. But it could be worse. So you have to deploy half your models in each corner. So in this corner, I've got the mortar hiding there. I've got a plague swarm. And because the enemy has indirect weapons as well, I've put lots of models on different levels and not all in the same cube. So he's got a mortar here. Now, lots of these are kind of vehicles or constructs. I think they're constructs, so they cannot be pinned, which is awkward because I would like to find my mortar and pin an enemy mortar in the first turn. That's the dream. But I'm not going to be able to do that because it can't be pinned, so I would have to hope to actually kill it. He has got some Kalishi, but I'm not as scared of them as I was in the last game because I've got Plague Swarm, which are the kind of Kalishi hunters because they're fighting on 3s, they're bigger than them, and with the splat from the stage 1, I can give them Frenzy now, which is probably one of the best units you can give Frenzy to, the Plague Swarm, because it's got AP2, hits on 3s, so that's just a great upgrade for them. On the other side, I've got Mr. Ghoul on the roof. I probably shouldn't have put him on the roof because there is a mortar, but he has got multiple choices to shoot at, so you maybe won't prioritize him. I've got a dog down there. The murder bird, I'm using the big bird model with the piece of terrain stuck to it for this list. And then we've got the plague swarm down there, the second one, and a dog inside the building, one on each floor actually. My Teraton, I think, is inside this building here underneath. So here we go. You can see that there is a big gang of Kalishi, including the Kalishi leader. There is one of the, I think that's a missile launcher up there. So 2 fights, 2 extra dice, and a shoot. That's not ideal. I would very much like splats and move dice. Those are the perfect ones for me, but I'll take the shoot because I've got a mortar, so could be worse. My opponent gets lots of extra activations, but you can only use 1 at a time. A shoot and a move, which is all right. So I go first. I use a shoot dice with the mortar to shoot the enemy mortar twice, I think, and put a wound on it each time. Or maybe I didn't wound it 1 time and put 2 on the second time. Either way, it's heavily wounded, but not pinned, crucially. So that's going to be firing now, and it immediately kills my HMG on the roof. So that's unfortunate, and possibly poor planning. I could have put him 1 floor down to make him immune to that, but then it could have shot something else and killed it in the first turn. So, there you go. Next, the mortar also got pinned because he fired the mortar at it as well, but it just bounced into a side wall harmlessly. Then the rocket launcher puts a wound on my ghoul, who just happened to be a target that was there. And the ghoul, is that one, the rocket launcher? I'm struggling to think. Maybe that was the only thing he could really see. But my ghoul then shoots the drone down here because he has an open shot on it and wounds it. With the ghoul, people know they shoot on a 6. They're pretty awful at shooting, but if you give them an open shot, they can actually be quite useful. I move my dog up onto this objective here, hoping maybe someone will come in to attack, because I use the dogs as kind of bait in the trap, because quite a few of my units aren't that fast. If you look at the Plague Swarms and the Stage 1A, they're not exactly amazing sprinters. But if I plant a dog somewhere nearby and the enemy choose to engage it, maybe they've walked into range of one of my more powerful fighting units, which would then also give me the bonus for moving into the combat rather than pushing the big fighter unit forward and allowing the enemy to attack me on their terms. And of course, choosing which one to attack. They'll attack the one that hasn't just been buffed up by a potential splat. Over here, my dog moves down into that cube. So closing in on the enemy. The enemy leader is up in the top left, I think. I think it's this one. Could be wrong. but that shoots the mortar, put some damage on, and this one kills a dog. So the dog that was right behind here this is the Kalishi. Charged in, killed the dog. Dog is dead. My Teraton goes in there and kills the drone that was hiding under there. I think it was the drone. So Teraton's first action of the game. And there's a hairy arm and hand. Yes, it was the drone. So Teraton gets a kill. And there's how the battlefield's looking. Right, so what happened there? My Plague Swarm got shot. And after jumping up onto the objective. So it took a wound, but you'll notice that there is a dead Kalishi. That's because what happened was I had a dog up there, didn't I? Let's see. Yes, I had a dog sitting up there on this objective. A Kalishi attacked it. Then my wounded Plague Swarm went into the Kalishi and killed it. So that was quite a ridiculously good performance there from the Plague Swarm. It was wounded, but like I was saying, if you've got something that's outsizes its opponent, if you can then move in, this is what I was setting up for, hoping it would come in and kill the dog, and then I could then move one of my big beasties in there who have some advantages over the Kalishi. So managed to kill it, so that's nice. So I'm up 7-4 at this stage. It's looking good so far. 2 splats, which is nice because there's never going to be a time when I won't want to use them. It's one of the most all-purpose splats I can think of, because even if I'm just going to be endlessly shot for a turn while moving forward, I can still put armor. Let's say even putting armor on a dog that's on an objective, suddenly it's actually quite tough to shift. And they're just great splats on the stage 1A now. Ridiculously good. A shoot, extra dice, and a move. A move is great because, like I said, I'm lacking a bit of speed. So my opponent has 2 fights, 1 shoot, and an extra dice. Okay, this is a fatal error possibly made by my opponent here. He left his Kalishi leader 2 cubes away from the stage 1A. So with a move dice, I was able to get my stage 1 onto his leader, which is the absolute dream because I was able to give myself Frenzy 1 as well with the splat. Yeah, so that did not end well for the Kalishi leader, as you can see. A stage 1A steaming in there with the size, with the moving in, with the frenzy. It was just dead. And I think I used extra dice in it as well. Yeah, I had 1 extra dice. I probably used it in that combat. So if that arm would like to move out of the way, there we go. That is a dead leader. So there's a nice bonus point for me and some victory points. So the mortar drone wounds the murder bird and pushes it from there into, I think it's in that cube technically, but it won't fit through the door, so we're just leaving it there. And kill the dog as well, because they were in the same cube, I think. The Teraton then kills the mortar. Teraton kills the mortar right there. This Kalishi jumps up there and kills the Plague Swarm that was there. So gets revenge for his mate. Or are they she, Kalishi? I think they are. So the Teraton then, this is great, this. The Kalishi there attacks the Teraton, who was already wounded, just kamikazes into it and dies, because I rolled really well with the Teraton. So that was quite comical. Then this Kalishi is moving on to the own objective there to get some points. And kills, is that one a Kalishi? I think it is, but there's a dead dog right there. So the dog must have been on an objective, not killed, presumably. I would think maybe it shot up there at the dog. I lose track of what's what sometimes with the Asterians. Okay, so at the moment I do have a leader kill and I'm racking up the points. So I'm currently on 16. My opponent is on, how many is that there? 12. Okay, so I am winning, but you need to get to 20 at 200 points. So the next turn, I've got move dice, activation, splat, and shoot, which is really nice. Nice combo there. My opponent has move, shoot, and fight. So he's lost his extra dice now because the leader is toast. So Kalishi kills the Teraton that by all rights probably should have died the last time a Kalishi attacked it. The big guy climbs up there, kills the rocket launcher with a move dice, and then gets blown off there, but doesn't get killed. He was wounded, though. I think he's got 2 wounds on him at this stage, but he kills the rocket launcher. Then this guy, the ghoul, who has been wounded for the whole game, jumps up onto the roof, fires down an open shot, and kills the gun that had moved up there to shoot my leader. So there's a picture of it dead. Then I move the Plague Swarm and the dog onto those objectives. The Plague Swarm with the Frenzy put on it killed another Kalishi. So there's a combo I really like this, putting Frenzy on the Plague Swarm. So there's how it looks at the end of that. And look at that, I've got 10 more points that turn. My opponent picks up 5 more, which means that I didn't even write in the final result. What a disgrace. So let's see, I've got 10, 19, 21, 26 points. And my opponent, in fact, I could just look at this sheet I've got right here that has all the scores on it. So I got 26, my opponent's got 17. And I did kill the leader, so it was a 5-1 tournament point win. And also at this stage, my aim was to get the best day 2 player award, which was rewarded with a t-shirt at this event. So I'm much more confident in this day 2 list. So I think I'm in with a chance at that if I can win all my games. Okay, so this time I'm against... Actually, no, that's not something I'm against. I just went through and took pictures of all the armies at this stage because they were all laid out for the paint judging. And there's some Vermin, Asterians, Nameless, more Asterians, Forge Fathers, my Plague, of course. I put the nice ones at the front as well. The Murder Birds there on the terrain piece, I think, are possibly the nicest looking model. More Asterians, Rebs. These are Maison Labs, I think, which are from the Star Saga. We've got Enforcers. We've got Plague. Marauders. More Vermin. More Rebs. More Rebs. And more Nameless. Okay, so the one that won Best Painted, I don't even remember which one it was actually right now. So I can't really tell you because I don't remember. Okay, so next game. I am against the Orange Vermin. So this is nice to come up against a fellow Orange army. And the scenario here is Scour. This is the one where you have to pick up items and take them back into your corner to score a point, which is not ideal for the Plague when I want to take lists like this, where the only model I would really want to use for that purpose is going to be the Almighty Ghoul. Because the HMG doesn't really want to be doing that. It wants to be shooting people. The Mortar definitely doesn't want to be doing that. And things like the Teraton and the Stage 1, I think technically they can pick things up, but you wouldn't really want them to be spending their time doing that. That's a total waste of their abilities. So I'm just going to have to hope to kill all the enemy models, because that would actually be enough to win the game, I think, if I kill everything in the opposing force. At my army, you can get possible 22 victory points from killing everything. So if I were to keep, say, a Teraton alive, or my leader, then that would be enough to prevent a loss if my opponent wasn't scoring any points by other means. But the Vermin force here is actually well equipped for this scenario. I was able to mitigate it slightly because at the start of the game on the recon roll, I was able to discard 2 of the items on the table. So I picked the 2 in that corner near the enemy. Okay, so here's my setup. It's deploying in the corner. So I've got my stage 1 the furthest along, Plague Swarms there, the dogs, the Mortar and the HMG in the corner are going to be firing out. Teraton there and a collection of dogs. And my Murder Bird and my Ghoul are kind of underneath this roof. My opponent has this big Wheel of Death. I always forget its name. He's got a progenitor is the leader in there somewhere with an indirect weapon. He's got a couple of rat swarms, a few regular rats, nothing special about them, and this, I think it's a nightmare, this guy with the drill. He has armor and a drill. So, a splat, 2 fights, activation, and shoot. I would have preferred move dice to all that fighting, which may not come up in turn 1. My opponent gets a couple of splats, which allows him to move a model that's already activated, and a shoot and an extra dice. So the mortar goes first, fires twice, kills 2 rats immediately. The first shot missed. At the second one, I tried it again and just killed both of them. So that's a great start, taking out 2 of the models that he was going to be picking up objectives with and running them back. Great start. My murder bird had scouted all the way up here onto this building, and it gets attacked by a rat swarm, but no damage is inflicted either way. Then down here, you can see that this little rat has jumped up there and taken a shot. This one is going up there. They're working their way towards the items. You can see those 2 dead ones there. I'm moving my dogs up into position to strike at the enemy. And he moves the nightmare into the murder birds as well, so he's got 2 on 1 in there. And I don't really want to kamikaze dogs in there, so I'm just going to hope the birds can hold them up for now. I've got my plague swarm on the bridge in the middle, and my stage 1 is moving up in this direction, hoping to eventually see combat. I've got a plague swarm down here as well. My Teraton is inside here, so if he doesn't suppress it immediately, it's going to be teleporting down to attack people. So at the end of turn 1, I just got the 2 points for the mortar kills, and that was it. Extra activations, splats, and fight. No move dice again, unfortunate. Splat, fight, dice, activation for the beer min. So I put a buff on this dog and sent it into combat, but didn't get the kill. And I also put a buff on the murder birds before the enemy could attack, because the buff goes away at the end of the round. So I wanted to get it buffed up again before they could attack it. This swarm here kills a dog that was up there. And this one jumps up and kills a rat that was sitting with this grenade. So there's another dead rat. The mortar blasts this area because they kill the murder bird. The mortar fires in through the roof, knocks the rat swarm out the window, and knocks down the nightmare, which means that this ghoul can lean out and get a clear shot on the rat swarm down there. He doesn't really kill it though, but the HMG has the same idea, does the same thing, and does actually kill it. So, yeah. Move out the way, Mr. Ghoul. The HMG toting specialist will show you how it's done. So there's a dead rat swarm. The dog is working its way under there, but it gets killed momentarily, I believe, by something that pops out and just shoots it. There's a bit of a stare down going on here. This dog gets killed by him, I think. Oh, there's a dog that was there that got killed by him. So I've got my plague swarms and my stage 1 moving up. Again, no move dice yet, so these guys aren't the fastest. At the end of that turn, though, my opponent has picked up some crucial victory points for killing dogs and murder birds, and he also deposited a few items back in his corner with his rats. So he's now jumped up to 7, and I'm on 5. So my command dice for this turn, I've got move, activation, splat, fight, dice. My opponent has a very blurry dice, activation, shoot, and splat. So immediately my Teraton is able to kill his leader, who was firing up indirectly through that hole. The Teraton just teleports straight onto him because I was able to either get the first turn or he failed to suppress it with the first shot of the round. Either way, the Teraton is in there and kills his leader instantly. So there's a nice tournament point and some VPs, and I've got Teraton deep in his lines now. The Plague Swarm is able to go and kill the Rat Swarm in there as well. And the Rat. I've got a dog on rat warfare going on here, but don't manage to kill it. I get my Plague Swarm into this big wheel of death, which is one of those things that has good armor. So Plague Swarm, perfect with its AP2, put 2 wounds on it. I find some intel with this ghoul, which is handy. just a free VP, 2 VPs, I think, in this scenario. Then these rats team up to kill the dog. So I'm really just hoping to kill everything here. But at this stage, I think I still need to kill everything to win, despite the extra points for the intel. Or maybe I could possibly have a rat or 2 left over at the end and still win. But I need to kill the big stuff, really. Over here, the nightmare's standing up again. And I've sent another dog in there and managed to kill one of the rats that was in there. I think one of them may have been wounded. Yeah, that one, I think. Or that might be his activation, actually. So in that turn, I get lots of kills, especially with the leader. So I picked up 9 there. So I'm well on my way now, and I've killed the leader. So 2 more turns, I just need to kill as much as possible. So I've got activation dice, still no move dice. This is getting really frustrating now. He's got all the move dice that maybe he doesn't really need at this stage. And not a lot really happens in that turn at all. I get 2 victory points, he gets 1. And the fact that I didn't even take any pictures of that turn should tell you that very little happened. I think really it was just the killing of a couple of rats, and probably the dog or a ghoul was just killed. Not much at all happened there. So in this final turn, I need to get some killing done to get to that 20-point threshold. I've got 3 extra dice, which are going to be great for combat, a splat, which is going to be great for combat, and an activation, which isn't really that important. He's got fights and a move, which aren't too interesting for him. And that's even the last picture. I didn't even get a picture at all of the action in the last 2 turns because very little happened, and then we were kind of rushed at the same time because the round was coming to an end, I think. So what happened was my Plague Swarm, let's see, the Plague Swarm ultimately finished off this guy in the last turn. The Teraton mopped up those who were hiding in that corner, and these 2 ended up getting killed. There was the Plague Swarm around there doing that. The Nightmare got killed as well. I think that was possibly this Plague Swarm that killed the Nightmare. Or the Nightmare may have come over here and the stage 1 killed it, something like that. But regardless, it died. I managed to kill everything, and that was just enough points to win with the... I didn't even take a picture of the notebook. That is truly shocking. Okay, well, I've got the scores right here. I ended that game with 23 points, my opponent with 9, and I got a leader kill as well. So that's 2 5-1s in a row, which is the best score you can get, which is very, very tasty. So moving on to the final game, and if I can win this game, I could be in with a chance for that best Day 2 player award, which would definitely salvage the horrendous Day 1 performance. And by the way, the loss I got in Game 3 was the first time I'd lost with the Plague in a tournament in 13 games, I think the streak was, undefeated. And that includes the tournament that I won by winning every game, and it also includes a tournament where I drew every game prior to that. So a 13-game unbeaten streak was snapped there, but I've got another one going here now, another 2-game streak at this stage, going into Game 6. And this is the Occupy scenario, which is what I kind of built my list for. The Teraton and the Stage 1, just big, beefy monsters that can sit on objectives in the middle. And the Plague Swarms are good at that as well. The Murder Bird going after any shooty enemies, the dogs going around harassing and then maybe leaping onto objectives at the end if they're freed up. And this time I'm against the Rebs. So you can see I've got a bird on there already, and some scouting yindage have come into the action. So I've got a mortar under here, and we decided that there were hatches in both floors, so the mortar can actually fire out of the roof there. So yeah, we had a look, and you could actually see to the bottom through it. So we decided, yeah, it can see. That's fine. Then Stage 1 under there, Plague Swarm on there. This Plague Swarm. Now, prior to this, I didn't know we were using the 7 and 8 results on the recon table. So I actually got them in at least one previous game and re-rolled them because I thought we weren't using them, because most tournaments don't use the flanking maneuvers. But they were actually in effect. And I only found that out in this game, so I played the flanking maneuver with the Plague Swarm here. So I'm going to use that to just come in the next turn and savage something. My opponent has some Yindage, which I've scouted up, a Teraton Shock Trooper, a Teraton, the leader, which is the the one that's really good at shooting. There's a sphere. There are some rebel troopers, and there's a Grogan with an onslaught cannon, and there's a Z as well. If there's anything else I spot, I'll let you know. There's a drone somewhere as well. So my opponent gets some fight dice. Nope, that's wrong. That was the previous game. Here we go. Right, I was rolling the mouse wheel the wrong way there for a second. So here we go. 2 splats, which is all right, but I'll be mainly using them defensively, I think, for this turn, because I'm not going to be getting too much combat yet, unless my opponent moves into range. Activation, move, which is always great, and the fight. My opponent has some extra dice, some splats, and a shoot. The Teraton immediately kills a craw that had moved up to there. So it moved there with, let's see, I'm not sure if it, yes it is, there it is, with the scout move it was there straight away. So the Teraton immediately teleported on it and ate it for dinner, and I played a splat on the Teraton to make it resilient because there is a sphere nearby who's got an AP2 weapon who can possibly see the Teraton and would be able to move to about here and shoot it anyway. So I gave it resilient because giving it an extra point of armor wouldn't help at all. So I knew he was going to get shot, so make him resilient, why not? The craw dead, good start. The mortar then fires out and knocks the leader off a size 1 floor that the leader was sitting on, because I don't want the leader just sitting on a floor that most of my models can't access. So there you go, fell down there, no damage though. The Grogan pops up and immediately onslaughts to death the murder bird. So again, a bird killed in the first turn. Never mind. I was going to use the bird to attack the enemy leader, except then I found out it was on a too small a surface. Then I get the dog and stage 1 suppressed under there. The HMG pops up, suppresses the cube with the Teraton shock trooper and a rebel trooper just to stop it teleporting out, mainly. And I think I did a wound as well, because I shot the trooper, wounded him, and then the whole cube is suppressed. This is a Sorak pops out and suppresses the dog that I've moved up onto an objective. This is another one of those kind of traps. If the enemy have got anything to attack dogs with, then I can then counter with dangerous units. My plan here is to swarm on all the objectives at the end of the turn, with dogs mainly, to start with, because they're the only things fast enough to actually do it at this stage. So you can see how it's looking there, converging slowly. I give this dog resilient or armor. I think it might be armor I give it, and I move it into this objective area here, and I move a second dog there as backup. So I'm holding both these at the moment. Their Teraton comes in and kills the dog though, and he's got a drone on that objective as well. So there's the dead Doge. My Plague Swarm moves in there to attack the Teraton. So the trap was sprung, but I don't manage to kill it. Then we see some hairy fingers, and whatever that is wounds my HMG. Then I move a dog up onto this roof here. This is the most dangerous objective to be on because it's totally exposed. There's no way to get cover anywhere unless you've got a model that actually loops below its base somehow, which I don't think is legal. So it's going to get shot by things left and right. And it actually gets attacked and killed by a Yundij. So my opponent is now holding 2 of the objectives, and I've only got this one. So dead dog. At the end of the turn, though, I do bring in my Plague Swarm here. So right at the start of the next turn, because I'm going to be going first, I'm going to be able to attack the enemy leader instantly and hopefully kill it straight away. So at the end of that turn, I've got 3. My opponent has 8. And exactly what I said did happen. I got the first turn, the Plague Swarm. I put Frenzy on it and immediately just chewed on the enemy leader and killed it. There you go, toast. So I've got a nice bonus tournament point there. In this fight here, it looks like the Teraton's taking wounds, and the Plague Swarm is as well. The Teraton may have got wounded last time. Let me have a look. Are there any wounds on it yet? No. It looks like it's wounded now. And then the Plague Swarm is as well. So the Grogan comes down and guns down my HMG. The mortar fires, knocks down a Sorak. You can see it's turning into a bit of a big mess of beasties in the middle. My stage 1 is going to be coming in soon. I've still got the Teraton down there. There is a dead Yundij. I can't remember exactly what killed that. but he was up there, so oh yeah, it must have been possibly the mortar shot him down. So here, the drone that was in there, the dog moved in, didn't kill it. Teraton moved in, finished it off. And the Teraton there is dead as well, the Plague Swarm. Finished that off. But I have got a dead dog after all that. There's a dead drone, there's a Teraton. So it's looking quite healthy for me, but there's nothing that I'd throw in there and be instantly confident about killing the Yindig. A dog could have a chance. Teraton gets suppressed again, as you can tell. Teratons are obviously a target for suppression because it stops them teleporting. I've got my stage 1 right into the action though, sitting on that objective. The dog down there does get killed by the Yindig though, so it's not looking too good at this stage. And now at this point, you'll notice the game ends on turn 2, despite the fact it's a draw. That's because just as we were about to finish turn 1, we were just coming to the end of turn 1, and then the shout went up for 15 minutes left, everybody. And I thought, we haven't actually been playing slowly at all. Maybe they've shortened the round because we were running late or something. So I think either we went into some kind of time-bending black hole, or we just genuinely didn't realize how slow we were being. So we managed to plow through turn 2 to get it done, but that was it. So it ended in a draw. My opponent got 17, I got 14. Had we got another turn, my prediction would have been that it probably still would have been a draw, because I've got enough beasties here to do some killing and hold 2 objectives at the end, which would have been enough for me to get to 20 points. He certainly would, because he's got enough models to sit on objectives that I can't control. So the Plague Swarm may have killed something like the Teraton. My leader would have definitely held that one. The Teraton probably wouldn't have got killed either. So we were probably heading for a draw, even if we had turn 3. We probably would have both passed 20, most likely, but you never know. So that's the end of that. And with all that, that gives me an undefeated day 2, which definitely makes up for the lack of wins on day 1. So I end the tournament with 2 wins, 3 draws, and a loss, which I will take above average. And I got 3 leader kills as well. So in the league table, it actually, on the official league table, it actually has me down as being in 7th place. But I did find out later there was a mistake in it and that one of my points hadn't been counted. So I did actually finish 6th out of 20 players. And considering that I was 3rd from bottom of the table going into day 2, I think that's a pretty good turnaround. And it just shows you that my day 2 list was definitely superior to whatever monstrosity I came up with on day 1. So I'm quite satisfied with that, since I've got the Terrain Award. And if you want to avoid any spoilers on the Dreadball tournament, now would be a good time to stop this video and go and watch the Dreadball tournament video, which is only about 20 minutes long, I think. So stop here if you haven't watched that yet and you plan on watching it, and go and watch that, because I'm about to spoil the result of it right now. Okay, so here is the selection of freebies and prizes. So not only did I win the Terrain Award at WOFCON 2018, which is represented by these dog tags here, and the custom mat for Deadzone. I had a choice of 2 custom mats, so I took this one because it's different from my other mats. Dog tag for that. Not only that, but I also won the WOFCON Dreadball tournament as well, which was nice. That was on the Saturday evening with 3 wins out of 3 with my Z's. So if you're watching this far, you either don't care about Dreadball or you've already watched that video. So I'm not worried about spoiling you now. So there's the lovely trophy. So that's in my cabinet right now, along with that new dog tag. So to explain all these things here. First of all, just for taking part in the tournament, everyone was given a copy of Guild Ball. Everyone who took part, I think in the Dreadball tournament at least, was given a Dreadball team, and I chose the Spheres because they just look cool, the shark people, and everyone got a Blaine Dreadball MVP as well. Then we were given some random sprues and bags of stuff, including some nameless miniatures for Deadzone. And let's see, what was an actual prize? Okay, so for winning the Dreadball tournament, I got a copy of Star Saga. I got the Dreadball event deck, which is basically an upgrade to the main game, and the Galactic Tour expansion, which features some league rules and some expansion models like cheerleaders and so on. So that's nice. So this is just a ton of stuff that I came home with. This is the most stuff I've ever left a tournament with legally. I'm sure I could have stolen more at a tournament in the past if I felt like it, but this is the biggest amount of stuff I've ever left a tournament with. A lot of it just freebies, and then a fair amount also, of course, prizes, especially the coveted first ever Manchester Cup Dreadball trophy. So all in all, considering my main objective was to win the terrain award, which I succeeded at, it was a nice bonus getting the Dreadball win as well. And then the Deadzone tournament started terribly with those 3 games that didn't go well at all, and ended with some very good salvaging, getting back up to 6th place out of 20 after a very good day 2. So I can also point out he was specifically asking for a bit of a shout out and a mention. The person that chauffeured me to a lot of recent Deadzone tournaments and provided 3 of the 4 chauffeuring experiences for me at this event, Mr. Ross, actually won the Deadzone tournament with his Rebs. And I think he won every game. If he didn't, then he certainly won most of them. And he actually won the Day 2 award as well for the most points accrued on Day 2, which I was gunning for going into the final game. So well done to him for that, for winning his first ever Deadzone tournament, joining the hallowed ranks of Deadzone tournament winners, which of course includes me from the Mariana Station Epsilon tournament a couple of months ago. So all in all, it was a very nice event. The venue, the Forge Manchester, very nice, very pleasant in there, nicely air conditioned. The one downside though, which is almost unforgivable, is the height of the doors in the toilets is ridiculously low. So any remotely tall person would have to duck while going through them. So I'm sure that's something they're looking into as we speak. Maybe all the people that work there are just really short and they never thought it would be a problem. But there you go. That's something to think about. Let's see, what else do I want to mention before the end of this? Thoughts on my lists then. So the new Plague Lieutenant. Maybe I just had bad luck. Maybe I just picked a list that didn't accentuate what works about that guy, but it didn't go well for me at all, the initial 150 point list. The Aberration didn't get that much done in many of the games. The stage 2s, they always seem to die really easily whenever I use them. They should be good, really. Maybe I'll try combining them with the stage 1's ability instead, because they already have Frenzy 1. So giving them something like AP, which I could do with the stage 1 splat, or even more Frenzy when they go into combat. Maybe they'll be good under those circumstances. That's something I need to try. What else did well? The Murder Birds were terrible at this tournament. That's the polite way of putting it. They were way below expectation, and anyone who says that they're broken should probably watch this video and change their mind, because they did not do very well here at all. What did well? The Mortar did quite well, I suppose. It didn't do too much that was totally game-changing, but it did get a few kills, and it's always handy just to have something to threaten with and to use the shoot dice on. The HMG is always useful for suppressing, but he does get killed more easily than other things. And if you want to prevent him getting killed, generally, you have to shoot with him and then move him out the way, which requires either only shooting once or using a move dice to get into position, shooting and then moving out the way, or the other way around. So using a move dice on him when you've got the stage 1 in there and Plague Swarms, who could make use of it much better than him, is a bit of a waste. So he does die quite easily, the HMG specialist, but he is worth it being in there. He's only worth 1 victory point, so that's good. In terms of giving out victory points, the dogs are actually quite inefficient if the enemy are killing them all, because they're so cheap in points, and they're giving away 1 victory point per 6 points of the model. If you compare that to something like the Mortar team that gives out 2 victory points for the cost of 24 points. So if you're taking a ton of dogs and they're getting killed, you're actually giving out tons of victory points there. So maybe the zombies aren't so bad after all. Maybe taking a list with just 1 billion zombies, not giving the opponent any opportunity to pick up points at all, that sounds like a way to guarantee yourself a lot of draws, if nothing else. So I'm going to be continuing to tinker with the new abilities. I hadn't taken any practice games with these lists beforehand, so I'll definitely be tweaking them for next time there's a Deadzone tournament. If I stick with Plague for that, I might go for the Rebs next time, or I might finish painting my Forge Fathers by then. You never know. Stranger things have happened. I haven't really started them yet. They're just undercoated in blue, and they're not at the front of my priority list at the moment. At the moment, I'm working on my undead halfling army for Kings of War to use as Rordians, and that has 3 big infantry hordes that I need to paint, because that's my next main project that I want to finish off so I can get them on the table. And if anyone has any questions about this event or about any of the games, feel free to drop them in the chat afterwards in the comments section, and I'll reply to those. Any other just random comments as well. And what's coming up next? Clash of Kings is the next thing I'm actually signed up for, and that is in around about a month's time, I think. So it's going to be goblins, most likely, going to that, because that's what I've been playing all year, and it's going to be their farewell for a while, as I put them back in the drawer and start playing other armies, probably for next year, with the Rordians and possibly Ogres as well. So, any other final comments before I wrap this one up? Are you fed up of staring at this pile of prizes yet? Well, let's just scroll back through the games, and then as soon as I get back to the beginning, I'm going to end this video. So anyone who's made it all the way through, you must be either a Deadzone fanatic or just an Andy's Voice fanatic, or both. I could understand someone being both, to be honest with you. It's the most logical explanation. So, there we go, scrolling on through. Anyone else has any other thoughts? Drop them in quick before I get to the beginning. Anyone who's watching this live, there are a few of you still in there. And what am I going to work on next out of the actual prizes? Am I going to try out Guild Ball and Star Saga? The answer is probably, because I've got them, so why not? But saying that, I have had Dungeon Saga for all these years, and it's just been sitting in a box unused. I have used some of the models in it for games of Dragon Strike, though. So we shall see. It depends if people near here want to actually play those games. That's the main issue. I'm looking at getting more into Dreadball now, since that scene is hopefully going to explode again with this tournament at WOFCON. Hopefully that's going to build the local community, and if I start doing more video coverage on it, then obviously people are going to be swarming to it like flies. I did a How to Play Dreadball series back in the first edition, and that proved quite popular. Someone actually translated it into French and then put it up on YouTube as well. So that tells you how good that was, if people are translating it. So that's nice. There are other people doing that kind of thing now, though. So I don't think I need to make one for second edition. And I'm a little bit late to the Dreadball second edition party, although I am getting the rulebook soon. I don't need a new pitch, because the old pitch is still perfectly good, I think. And I think I've got everything else I need to get started on that. I've got plenty of teams. Oh, there we go. Got to get one last look at that as well. I didn't get to play on my own table at this tournament, which is fine by me, because when I take a table to a tournament, it's really, if it's something I'm looking at every day, I'd rather as many people as possible get to play on it, if I'm taking it there for other people's enjoyment. So it's probably best if I don't actually get to play on it. Okay, here we go. Almost back to the start now. And then we're going to wrap this one up, because this has been a fairly lengthy one by Deadzone standards, I think, this video. The last one definitely wasn't this long, because that was far less games. Deadzone reports tend to be shorter than Kings of War, because the kind of blow-by-blow coverage isn't as easy to comment over. It's just a case of, well, this guy shot there, that guy shot there. I can't tell you like the tactical nuance of which way things are facing like I can with Kings of War. Speaking of Kings of War, I wonder if Kings of War is cursed. It seems to be the only game system that I'm never going to win a tournament for. I've won a tournament in Relics, in Deadzone, and in Dreadball now. Although I've been to way more Kings of War tournaments than all those other games combined, probably. Yet Kings of War is the one that eludes me. Although I would argue that the Kings of War tournaments are possibly the most difficult to win. There are players who are very, very skilled at Kings of War at the high level and take it more seriously, perhaps, than people take the other games that I've won. So it's probably the most difficult and often has the highest number of players in those tournaments as well, which again adds a layer of difficulty. So maybe one day I can break the curse. I've only got second and third places at Kings of War tournaments previously, so that's next on my list now that I've got Dreadball bagged. So I'm going to close this live stream down now. Thanks to everyone for joining me for the last probably about an hour and a half, was it? Yeah, looks about that. And I will catch you all next time. Good night out there, whatever you are.